All right, it is Monday, and I am inviting my audacious founder, like we always do. Guys, we've been doing these for the last couple weeks, and not last couple weeks. Like we're talking, 10 plus. Monday at 11:30 Mountain or 1:30 Eastern, and we just have just good conversation. Like we just talk about the things that are front and center for us. And I love your green today, my friend. Oh my gosh, we're totally in the Christmas spirit.
It's like we coordinated or something.
I love this is starting to get it's starting to be one of those things like I can't wait until you get on just so I can see what you're wearing.
Wait a second. Is your hair red?
Oh yes, it is. Okay, so let's
Okay,
a
you
moment
should have
of
told me about that because then I could have made my hair green.
you're right. I'm sorry. Next
Yeah,
time I'll let you know.
missed
Yes,
opportunity.
the 5-year-old, she wanted to get a little something in her hair, and so we both went and got pink in our
Aw.
hair, but the little bit of blonde that was left in my hair like really took it,
Uh-huh.
and so I ended up with stripper pink. Ooh ah, ooh ah.
Listen, I take offense to that because when I was in college, I dyed my hair pink. So I take offense.
Hey, you should. It's just beautiful. It's sassy in all the right ways. That's what I
Agreed.
meant to say.
Agreed. It is fun. It is
Thank
fun.
you. It is super fun. And my little girl, she absolutely loves it. And that's all that
Aw.
matters to
It
me.
looks cute.
Thank you.
I
Thank you.
like it.
It's sassy. I
Yeah.
like it. So, all right, my friend. We've got Carlos who joined on here. Anybody else joining too? Welcome, guys. This is you know what? I feel like we should officially name this time together. We'll have to do like
Oh
real
my God.
talk with Melissa
We
and Britt. I don't know what.
we got to think about it. We got to think about it. In our brainstorm, in our accountability meeting, we're going to talk about it.
Deal.
Okay.
All right. So, but really, we just get on here because we want to. We love the way that each other we challenge each other. It's just good conversation about whatever is maybe like coming up for us right now. And so normally before we jump onto these, there's a quick text
What the
exchange. Just
heck are we
like
going
you
to
got
talk
something.
about?
What are we gonna do? So you actually left me an audio message, and every bit of those 2 minutes and 12 seconds, I was like, man, that should have been on here. So go, girl, go, and then let's just unpack it together.
Okay. I have to remember what I even said. Okay. So this morning I had a call with a client who owns restaurants and bars. And he was just talking about, like, every time we get on a call, he's hired a new manager and fired a new manager. And we were just talking about, or actually I was acknowledging with him that it's employing people is challenging, right? Being a good boss is challenging. Having
Mm-hmm.
people stay in their roles for a long period of time is hard. The turnover is hard. And it's, so I feel like as an owner of anything where you have employees, you're ultimately always trying to find people that you trust enough so you can delegate so that you can move on up to do the things that you're supposed to be doing as the visionary or the leader of whatever the business is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fascinating too because, you know, talking to this client, I know that he's the visionary. He's the nice guy. He doesn't want to be like yelling at people when they do wrong things. He doesn't want to be a bad boss. He wants to be liked. But I wonder how much of that is preventing him from finding good employees or maintaining good employees. And then also, how much time is he putting into the hiring process and how much is reasonable to
Yeah.
ask to put into the hiring process? And then does that actually make a difference in terms of longevity?
Yeah, that right there was like a total trigger for me. So yeah, 14 years in staffing. And I know I put my time in. Also
Yeah.
too, I put my time in and got to work with like some of the most incredible companies in the entire world. So everything you're saying, I'm just like, uh-huh, uh-huh,
We should,
uh-huh.
I don't think it clicked in my brain that like you were in staffing. And so I'm like, why has it taken this long for us to
Right.
have this conversation?
Yeah, to have this conversation. Yeah, so it like the oh my goodness, the hiring, the importance of hiring the right people and actually putting your time and attention into hiring what it saves you on the back end. I mean, exactly what your client was experiencing, right? Like every single month he's having to turn over. And so then you're having to onboard, you're having to offboard, you're having to onboard on top of now training. And I mean, that's miserable. It's a miserable cycle. And the only way that it ends is when you actually stop the madness and you say, okay, how are we going to, like, what are we going to implement in our hiring process
Yes.
to do this the right way?
Yes.
Yeah. Go
Is
ahead.
it true, and this might be like jumping a
Yeah.
couple steps ahead, but like, is it true that when you are being interviewed, like from, you're the employee or the applicant perspective, that it's like, if you feel like you've actually won this position, or you feel like you've like overcome challenges to earn this position, that
Mm.
you're more likely to stay longer? Or is that kind of
Mm.
irrelevant? Is it more of like, it depends on your personality? It depends on who you are.
I haven't heard that. I haven't
Okay.
heard that part. Like how, like the way that you feel during an interview. I think that, yeah, like in interview, I would say the biggest thing that personally what I experience is like, I think where, I think the biggest miss for somebody interviewing in a job where they miss
Mhm.
is they forget that they are as, it is as much about interviewing that organization as it is about being interviewed. And I think sometimes we have this perception, we go to the interview as almost like it's like the popularity contest. It's like you're begging for the approval. You're like, ooh, I really hope they offer me this job. Like,
Mm.
I need to put my best foot forward and I need to, like, we prepare and all of these things where it's almost like it feels one sided. And we forget just how much, as somebody who's being interviewed, we have like we have a responsibility to ourselves to do some of our homework and like ask about their leadership style. Tell me about your turnover rates,
Mhm.
like to do our homework and to interview the organization as well, because I think that that uncovers a lot in there too. Looks like we got Gabby maybe, or
Oh, I
we
haven't
just
even
joined.
been looking.
Yeah, like did yeah. So I haven't heard that on that side, but I do think it's just the biggest miss is just making sure that you're going in and you're interviewing the organization as much as they're interviewing you. I think that's the first place to
I
start.
think that's really interesting. And I don't know, because that does, like, I picture that a corporate setting, right? Like when you're
Mhm.
going in for a corporate interview, you're applying for a corporate job. Like, yes, that is kind of how it feels. Like you are waiting to be judged, you are waiting to be chosen,
Yeah.
as opposed to doing the opposite. But when I was hiring people for my food and bev kind of not corporate scenario, I was doing the opposite.
Yeah.
I felt like they were doing me a favor by
Oh,
accepting the job. And I think because, and I know that like bar and restaurant owners and managers can relate to this, where people quit on a moment's notice and you're just like, I need a body, like I just need somebody to show up and bring things to
somebody
people,
just
you
to
know
say, hi, let me take you to your seat. Like that's all I
yes,
need. Hi, take you to
yes.
your seat. Hi, take you to your
And
seat.
so sometimes you're just like, I think sometimes you go into the interview with that energy where you're just like, okay, you're breathing, you got clothes on,
God.
um you don't you don't stink that bad, okay, you're hired, let's go, because you're just like, you got a million things to do and you just need a body. And I think that is a
Yeah.
horrible, obviously a horrible way to go about it. And I think sometimes we're just like so flustered with all the things that's kind of, you're just like, and even if it's not a restaurant, even if it's not food and
Yeah.
bev, like anything, I just need a
Retail.
marketing person.
Yeah.
You're like, you want to just find the person so bad that maybe you pick the lowest hanging fruit, and that's
Yeah.
not the best
I'm
person.
so glad you brought that up. Yeah, because I do. I mean, totally different, right? And my experience really is more so on the corporate side. But I could imagine, like, if you were hiring in retail, it's just a different.
Yeah.
It's a different skill set, and so what you need is just so different.
Hmm.
That yeah, somebody who's coming in for maybe like a retail job or maybe like food and beverage isn't asking you about your turnover rates.
Yeah. No, actually, they might. They very well could.
And
Yeah, but they're not going to ask you about maybe your management style, your leadership style.
yeah. And then to your point about that, like at that point in time, you're just like, hey, if I know that my turnover is just going to be constant, then how much time should I really be putting on the front end of the hiring process?
Then it becomes quantity.
Yes. Yeah. And so, yeah. And to that, like where my brain goes is like, there's got to be, again, and this would just be completely my assumption. I can't speak to it as an expert, but I think you have to put certain systems and scalable measures in place. I mean,
Yeah.
hey, like, are you a breathing body? Do you not stink? Like, do you have at least one reference that's going to say you're going to show up for work? Like,
I
whatever
did always
that
check people's references. I'm not as bad as I'm making myself sound right now, but yes. Yeah.
like to have that criteria and then to just, but then maybe this is also where the brain goes, having that after somebody has after you've made the determination, yes, want to offer you the position, they say yes, cool beans, when do you start, just really then maybe you put more time into like the training and the onboarding of that person. Because I think, and this is something you kind of said in your audio about just like people not wanting to work.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, I said that. I remember, especially like 2018 especially was really tough where, yeah, it was like, man, you just can't find anybody to work. I remember saying that even in the professional arena. I don't know if I believe that it's as much about you can't find anybody who wants to work. I think there's so many aspects, but one of the first things that comes to mind is like, I think it's just there's a matter of if someone is working, whatever we're doing, our efforts, we just want to know that there's going to be some type of return, I think, right? Like,
Okay.
so if there's pieces of us that feel like the return that we're getting for our efforts is not matched, I think that that's when things fall apart really fast. Like you think that, hey, I'm busting my booty for, $25 in tips, and that ain't gonna work. It's when there's the mismatch of the efforts
Ooh.
compared to returns.
So it's expectations.
I think expectations play into it for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm thinking, I don't know, I guess just based on the conversation I had this morning and based on my personal experience having food and bev establishments, like I'm thinking on that scale, I'm not thinking necessarily corporate, but like,
Yeah.
when you're going in for an interview, and because with corporate, you're getting the salary. What the salary says on paper for the most part is what you're going to get, unless there's commissions and bonuses.
Doesn't mean people
With like
are always happy with it, though.
True. True. That's true. And so even if they know what they're getting,
Yeah.
once they get in there and they experience, the culture, the workload, the interactions, the personalities, all of it might not be worth the money that they originally accepted. And same thing in like these smaller, like restaurants and stuff like that. It's like the employee or the manager, I'm sorry, the employer or the manager might tell you like, oh yeah, you're going to make like $200 a night, but then you make $25 a night and you're like, okay. So it's true. It's being honest. It's setting, appropriate expectations. It's being very transparent about what the role. So again, right, the effort you're putting into the information that you're giving along the hiring process to really make sure they know what they're signing up for.
Yeah.
And I guess so do you. The expectations are clear.
So I'm curious, in your experience, like what has the people who stayed with you in this like food and beverage space, what was key to retention? And I'm curious if it's different than what like I saw in corporate.
Oh my God, that's such a good question. And I don't know if I have an answer.
Or what would be your best guess, like if
Yeah.
you're talking, and hey, anybody who's listening, again, the whole reason we do these conversations is like we want to learn, we want to grow, we want to be challenged as well. So if you know, or if you work in food and beverage, like what's the thing that makes you stay in food and beverage? Like it's okay, yeah, we're getting some like Kendra girl. So like the acknowledgement, so retention in the form of like rewards or yeah, or just recognition in addition to compensation. Yep, they feel seen and heard.
Yeah.
I think that Kendra, for what's that I would say is universal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it doesn't matter what industry you're in. I mean, if you're working in corporate, you want those rewards and that acknowledgement as much as anybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I, that's a really good question. And I wish that I could go and survey the employees that I used to have and see what they would say about it. I think, honestly, I think, well, I don't know how it was perceived, but from my perspective, what I was trying to actually do, speaking of what Kendra just said, is
Yeah.
like I always really attempted to make everybody feel like they had an input.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, like I had to make the final decisions, but like I want to hear your opinion. What are you seeing that I'm not seeing?
Yeah.
Um, you know, what ideas do you have? You know, I want you to be happy in your workplace. What is causing you the issues? Like I wanted there to be very open communication, but I do think, and again, maybe this is not correct, but I do think there's always a little bit of like, not always, maybe not always, but like sandpaper between like employees and the person above them. Like
Oh,
it's hard to be told you hate this, you don't agree.
I hate this so much, but it's not because you're wrong, or like it's just it's again, it's such like a trigger point, because I agree with you that 98% of the leaders out there are piss poor leaders, and it is sandpaper. And that's why I'm just like, oh, she's so wrong. But I don't think it has to be that way. I
Yeah.
actually know it doesn't have to be
Yeah.
that way. And I think that that's totally like the flip side of what you were saying today.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the flip side of the coin. Like, what for your client, what's the leadership style? What's
Right.
working about their leadership? Like, how are they creating autonomy? Like, how are they making people feel seen? Like, when folks work too, like how the effort that we're putting in, and are we getting matched ROI? I think that part of that effort is they just, I don't I don't think that folks want to sign up for like mindless work.
Mm-hmm.
Even if your job requires the most mundane tasks, there's still, I think that if an organization has done a good job and the culture is right, and we all understand that we're all working towards like a common purpose, and the way that our work actually impacts not just the organization, but how our work actually impacts other people and impacts the world, that also would be associated with ROI. Like, there's a fulfillment and a satisfaction there, the knowing the impact that you're making. I think that impact is really important in a job too.
In your job,
Mm-hmm.
how did they how did you feel that you were making an impact? Like what were you
Mm-hmm.
seeing that was like, okay, this is why I'm doing this?
Yeah. I think that one of the things, the old organization that I worked with, I think that one of the things they did really well was a focus on culture. And part of culture, if you do culture right,
Mm-hmm.
it's not just a mission statement written on paper. It's a mission statement that leaks in everything you do. But I think that they did a really solid job of creating this high level overarching mission statement that everybody, regardless of your title, your salary grade, whatever, everybody could repeat the mission statement and knew what the mission statement was. And I think that having something like that implemented in your culture is huge, no matter the size of your organization.
How did they get everyone to care about the mission? And like was that something that was
Mhm.
identified in the interview, or because obviously that's something that somebody could just totally fake.
Yeah. Um, I know, for instance, like things that I was doing is like, yeah, I was, as a leader, I was including that in my interview process. Like, hey, here's our mission. Tell me about a time you did this.
Mm.
And just seeing the way, I think, right, I think that there's like an emotional intelligence. I think that there's a just genuinely caring too. When people respond, are you like, do you see them light up when they're, you know, especially too in staffing, when you're talking about like impacting some of the largest organizations in the world, like does someone light up when they
Uh-huh.
like, and I
Uh-huh.
think I think in your hiring you have to be able to catch those little things. But
Mm-hmm.
to your point too, if you're going so fast and you're just trying to check the marks of like, can this person do this, can this person do this, can this person do this, cool beans, get them in the door.
Mm.
I think sometimes maybe that's where we create some of our own headaches.
I have another question for you that you might relate to. I'm interested to hear what you have to say about it. I feel like I'm somebody who can see people's potential very clearly. Like, I think
Mm-hmm.
anybody can do anything. So if you tell me I am like more than qualified to do X, Y, and Z, I'm gonna be like, hell yeah, you are. Let's go. Okay. Yeah. So I think sometimes my belief in other people and their abilities kind of blocks or blinds me to maybe those subtle things that might give me like a red flag,
Yeah.
or maybe like
Yeah.
benefit of the doubt, right? Like giving people the benefit of the doubt. Like I want to be somebody who gives somebody an opportunity. I want to be somebody who gives someone a chance. But it's like, how do you know when that is somebody who's going to take advantage? I mean, in a good way, like
Mm-hmm.
take advantage of the
Of the
opportunity
opportunity.
versus someone who's just going to kind of repeat old patterns and poo poo it.
Yeah.
I think that was more than one question in a question. So
No, yeah.
answer however you like.
Yeah. I was like, do you already have an answer that comes to mind for you? Like how you navigate that, having the benefit of the doubt? Like how do you already have that? No.
Well,
Um,
an idea, and again, I want to hear what you have to say about it. Just maybe making it more of a system and
mm,
less of an emotional potential kind of thing. And I don't know if that's possible.
I like your answer. I mean, I, yes, I think that, I think sometimes you just never know.
Mm,
I like,
there's
that's,
that.
you know, like
Yeah.
that, and just being willing to accept that, hey, you had your, to your point, you had the right systems in place, you followed the formula for who you want to hire and how you want to hire, they checked all the boxes, and now you're here. Because I think about how many times you just, folks have a great interview and then they actually get in the door and they can't perform, it's not there, like they you gave them the benefit of the doubt and it's just not happening. And I don't necessarily think that that means it was a bad hire. um,
Hmm.
I think that sometimes on both sides you don't know what you're getting into until you are actually butt in seat.
Yeah.
And if things change. But then I think that at it's probably like the responsibility of the leader to allow
How
this
could we have
person,
caught?
yeah, like to allow this person to fail fast,
What
honestly.
what's that phrase? It's like hire slow, fire fast, or
Mm-hmm.
something like that. Is that the
Mm-hmm.
is that right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's so accurate, because yeah, if you get someone in the door that's only going to, I mean, cause headache and heartache, that's almost worse than having the seat empty.
Totally. Because bad attitudes are contagious.
Yeah,
Mm,
like poison apples, man.
yeah. Kendra, what about a 30-day review with checkpoints that they have to meet by the 30 days to make sure they're still hitting all of those boxes?
Yeah,
Totally. Right? Like,
I think.
yeah, that's kind of like something that I was talking to the client about today, because again, he's in that place of like, he's trying to do so much that he doesn't have time to like sit here and spend, hours searching for a new person to manage the space. But again, he's going to spend that time anyway over a longer period of time because he keeps getting people that are not the right fit. And so that's what we were talking about, is creating a system. And so that's kind of why I brought up that whole quote about the shortcut, trying to do the least,
Uh-huh.
right? Versus trying to give as much as you possibly can. So I don't know if it exactly is like a clear line to that, but I think the point is being more
Being
intentional.
more intentional on the front end. I think that's one of those things. Like what the 2 marshmallow decision. Do you know what that is?
Oh, like immediate gratification
Yeah.
versus getting
Yeah.
more.
Yeah. So it's like make the 2 marshmallow decision to just like put your efforts on the front end so that it's almost like it probably to your client who's already up and going, like it's going to feel this way. It's going to feel like taking 2 steps back.
Yep.
But like putting in the work and going the 2 steps back is only going to actually generate an immense amount of momentum to.
Totally.
So I think that quote that you said though, I think there are places in our businesses that we absolutely can and should be taking shortcuts for the sake of making sure that visionary, like the visionary actions and our zone of genius, that we actually have time for that stuff. So I think there's things in our businesses that we should be taking shortcuts on. And then I think that there are things that you absolutely shouldn't. And I think it's okay for it to change too. So for instance, bye guys, thanks, or bye Kendra, thanks
Bye,
for being here.
Kendra.
I think that could change. So one of the things that's coming through is like, for me, like I wanted to try and do a campaign and I could have automated it right out of the gates. But by forcing myself to do it manually the first time through, it allowed me to very quickly like figure out where it was working, wasn't working. And then after I had gone through that process, at that point in time, then implementing the shortcut, implementing the automation. But so I think that shortcuts can change too.
Yeah. It's just, my God, everything takes so much thought, right? I mean, when deciding where to automate, where to take the shortcut, it's like you really need to sit down and be like, okay, if I take this shortcut, is there anything that's being thrown under the bus? Is there anything that's being compromised? And is it worth it? And it very, like, yes, like you said, a lot of areas it probably is worth it, like automating maybe your emails or your posts or things like that, so that you can spend your time on the things that are more impactful.
Yeah.
And you can give more. Yeah.
Because I do think it is about being able to give more. Like, I don't think that you're looking for a shortcut so that, like, I mean, yes, there is an ease sometimes. There is an ease that comes out of it. But what I am experiencing in this whole entrepreneurship thing is like, hey, if there are any shortcuts I'm taking in any way, shape, or form, it is truly so that I can give more on the other end. It's not because I'm looking for like an easy way out to do something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you say the same for you? Like from an entrepreneurship standpoint, like when you're taking shortcuts, are you, what's the primary driver, I guess?
I'm in conflict.
Tell
in
me
conflict.
more.
Kate Northrup.
Tell me more.
Kate Northrup has a book called Do Less. And as I am someone who I think that I overcomplicate just about everything, I'm an overthinker, I'm an overdoer, I add way too much to my plate thinking that I'll be able to do it all. And then I'm just like completely fried and exhausted at the end of it. And so I'm in this constant conversation in my mind of like, what else can I do? What else can I give? How can I give? How can I help? How can I impact? And then the other part of me is just like, bitch, you need to chill. Like, just sit down.
Do less.
Do less. Kate Northrup in my head, do less. And so I don't know. I think that's again, constant conversation, constant like weighing of things. And I hope that for me, again, like as I opened more businesses, it did not get easier because I was just adding more to my plate. But my hope is that as you grow in whatever you're doing, you're able to find more freedom and space. But I think you have to be super intentional about it.
You have to be super intentional about it. It's like have you read the 10x is better than 2x? You know, that was like,
no, but writing it down.
Yeah, that's trending. And that's like the whole concept there. This was a couple months ago that I read it, but it was like the whole concept there is that you're spending time on the 20% that is really
Yes.
going to move the needle. And then that 80% is you're either delegating it or you're putting other systems in place. Like it sounds like a similar concept.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I don't even know like what to title this one or what to put in the caption. Like we were all over the place.
I took some notes. I'll text you a picture.
I got like I love it. So we all the things, yeah, hiring, leadership.
Shortcuts versus, I don't know, taking the time, putting the time into it.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Being intentional.
But
Yeah.
I love this conversation about employees and hiring. And so I'd actually like to do a podcast with you on that.
Bring it
Yeah.
on, baby. Let's go.
Let me squeeze the experience out of you.
Let's go. Let's go. All right,
Okay.
guys. If you enjoyed this, give us a like, comment below. Like I said, we want to be challenged. The whole reason we show up
Mhm.
here is not because we think we have all the answers, but to continue to like expand our own awareness of how things can be different for others or how others are navigating this.
Yeah.
Even just like how you're hearing the two of us and our perspectives and the changes that happened literally in 30 minutes. So I always love being here with you, friend.
Same here. If you guys have feedback, even if it's contradictory to what we said, please send it. We want to hear what you know that we don't.
Yes.
Yeah.
Make us smarter. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye. See you next Monday.